Hello and welcome to the Mysteries of the Shire. I am Ted Stonewall. Sit back and cozy up and join me in the mystery of the grain thief. The discrepancy started Tuesday. £3, 4 ounces. Not much, barely enough to bake 2 loaves. Most millers wouldn't notice. Father would have noticed. Father noticed everything. I measured grain to the quarter ounce because he'd beaten precision into me alongside reading and arithmetic. My father always says,
"Reputation is the difference between customers and ruin."
£3, 4 ounces. Wrong, and I knew it. By the following Monday, the shortage had grown to £8. Worse, the thefts were accelerating. £3 the first week, 5 the second. If the pattern held, I'd lose £12 next week. Noticeable, scandalous, enough for Father to intervene. Father reviewed inventory every Friday. He always did. Someone was stealing from Stonewall's mill, and I had 4 days to find them. I found Father in the grinding room, adjusting the gap between the millstones. He didn't look up when I entered, never did until the work was finished. The wheel groaned outside, patient and eternal. We have a problem.
The bearing.
No. The inventory. That got his attention. He straightened, brushing stone dust from his hands with that methodical precision I'd inherited, or learned, impossible to say which anymore. I showed him my ledger. The numbers laid out clean. Deliveries, sales, processing losses, and at the bottom, the discrepancy. £8 across 2 weeks. Small amounts, easy to miss, but I hadn't missed them. Father studied the page, didn't touch it, he never did, as if my handwriting carried some contamination. His eyes tracked the columns once, then returned to my face.
You'll handle it. Mill's yours someday.
Not approval, not quite, but close enough that I felt the weight of it settle across my shoulders like a millstone. He turned back to his work, subject closed. I had 4 days. The storage room door showed no signs of forced entry. I ran my fingers along the lock housing, checked the frame, examined the hinges. Nothing. Either the thief had a key, or they'd entered during operating hours when the door stood open. The floor told a different story. Boot prints, multiple sets, overlapping in the flour dust that settled on everything despite our sweeping. Most I recognized: Father's heavy tread, my own narrower prints, Walter Hayward's wide farmer's feet. But others remained, smaller prints, fresher, leading toward the window. One set caught my attention. Worn heels, heavy tread. The kind of boots that got resoled too many times instead of replaced. Working Burrow folks' boots. The window itself sat barely 3 feet off the ground, large enough for someone slight to squeeze through. The latch worked loosely, easy to open from outside if you knew how. I knelt, studying the prints more carefully. Several different sizes. Someone had been here multiple times, or multiple people had been here once. The dust made dating impossible. Everything got coated within hours of sweeping. But the pattern was clear enough. Small amounts taken. No mess beyond the footprints. Whoever was stealing knew enough to be careful, but not enough to hide their tracks completely. Not a professional. A professional would have taken more, less often. This was cautious theft. Someone afraid of getting caught but desperate enough to risk it anyway. Or someone who didn't understand the evidence they were leaving. I spent the next 2 days watching. Customers came and went. Walter Hayward delivered his grain on Wednesday, cheerful as always, asking after Father's health as he always did. The Greenfield brothers picked up their flour order. Widow Agnes Thatcher collected her weekly supply, lingering to complain about the heat. Rufus Timberland picked up flour for his sister Matilda. Late again on payment, I noted. The Timberlands were having a hard year. Normal traffic, normal business. But I paid attention now. Watched who came near the storage room, who knew the mill's layout, who lingered by the window a moment too long. The pattern emerged slowly. The thefts happened Tuesdays and Thursday, always at night after the mill was closed down for the night. Someone knew our schedule, someone who'd watched. Earlier that day, Rufus Timberland had been by again, walked past the storage room window, glanced at it, just for a moment. Nothing unusual, but I filed it away. That narrowed it down. Tuesday evening, I stayed late, checking the wheel bearings. At least that's what I'd tell Father if he asked. He wouldn't ask. The mill settled around me, wood creaking as temperature dropped, the wheels' patient revolution, water rushing beneath. That sound never stopped, day or night, the acoustic bass line of my entire life. Movement by the storage room window. I looked up sharply. A figure, small, young, pressed close to the glass, watching the grinding room. Our eyes met. He jumped like I'd put a knife to his throat. Bolted. Left footprints in the mud by the window. Belle Riverstone. Gareth Riverstone's boy, barely 12. Hands still too small for proper work. I should have called out. Didn't. Sometimes it's better to watch than to act. Let the guilty party think they've gotten away. They always come back. That evening, I went to the Badger's Den. Needed to think. Needed distance from the mill and father's cold silence. The tavern was warm, crowded with the usual crowd. I took my ale to a corner table, reviewing everything I knew. Oswald Kettlewell was wiping down the bar when I approached.
Bill Riverstone been around lately?
The Riverstone boy? Aye, he's been odd lately. Asking questions about milling. Wanted to know how the gears work, how water turns the wheel. Thought he was just curious.
When was this?
Past 2 weeks, maybe. Why? He in some kind of trouble?
Just curious myself.
I returned to my table. Widow Agnes Thatcher leaned over from the next bench.
I've seen that boy skulking near your mill, Ted Stonewall, twice last week. Morning and evening both times. Looked suspicious to me.
Her words, not mine, but accurate. The next morning I examined the boot prints again. Child size, just as I'd thought. Matched Belle's size. I'd noticed his boots before without thinking about it. But there were other prints too. Adult-sized. Worn heels, heavy tread. I'd seen them before, filed them away as normal traffic. Now they nagged at me. Something about those boots. But Belle's prints were clearer, fresher. The evidence pointed to the Riverstone boy. Tuesday afternoon. Belle near the mill again, watching through the storage room window while I worked. When I glanced up, he jumped and walked away quickly. Flour dust on his jacket, white against dark homespun, visible from 20 feet away. Wednesday at market. I saw Belle watching me from behind Prudence Oatcake's bread stall. When I looked directly at him, he disappeared into the crowd. Thursday morning. Another 3 pounds missing. The boot prints by the window matched. The flour dust, the nervous behaviour, the timing. Everything pointed to Belle Riverstone. Made sense. All of it made sense. That should have been my first warning. Thursday evening. Late afternoon when the light turned gold and soft. Belle came up the path toward the mill, walking slow like he didn't want to arrive. I stepped out from beside the building.
Belle Riverstone.
The boy froze. His face went white.
Mr. Stonewall?
Barely a whisper. His hands twisted together, knuckles going white. I should have stopped there, should have asked questions first. But I'd spent 3 days building this case, and the evidence was clear.
Flour dust on your jacket. Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Small boot prints by the storage window. You've been watching the mill.
I didn't mean...
The storage room window. 5 times in 2 weeks. Always late afternoon. Always when Father's gone and I'm working alone.
I can explain. I wasn't stealing. I swear it, Mr. Stonewall, I swear.
Tears now. Real tears. Running down his face in tracks through the flour dust he probably didn't know was there. His shoulders shook. The kind of crying that comes from terror, not guilt. I'd been so certain.
Then explain.
I wanted to see how the gears work. How the water turns the wheel. I wasn't taking anything. I swear it.
My hands felt suddenly clumsy, heavy, like they didn't belong to me. I'd frightened a child. Not caught a thief. Frightened a child.
Why were you watching? Why not just ask?
I wanted to understand how you know things.
Know things?
Everyone says you're the smartest burrow folk in the burrows. That you notice things no one else does. I thought if I watched long enough, maybe I could learn. Be clever like you.
The words hit me like cold water. Hero worship. That's what I'd mistaken for guilt. A 12-year-old trying to learn by watching someone he admired, too shy to ask directly.
There's a girl at market, Lily Hayward. She likes smart burrow folk, ones who know things. I thought if I understood mills and trades and how things work, maybe she'd...
He trailed off, too embarrassed to finish. Something lodged in my chest, heavy, awkward, like a stone in the wrong place. A child trying to impress a girl by studying millwork through windows. And I'd terrified him, made him cry, made him think he'd done something criminal when all he'd wanted was to understand how gears worked, to be clever enough to catch Lily Haywood's eye.
You're not the thief,
No, sir.
and you weren't trying to steal.
Never, sir. I swear it.
I nodded slowly. Should have felt relief. Should have felt satisfaction at eliminating a suspect. I felt like I'd broken something.
You can watch the mill properly during the day. If you want to learn how it works, ask. Don't lurk outside windows like you're doing something wrong.
Really? You'd teach me?
I'd show you. Teaching's different. Come by tomorrow afternoon if you want. I'll explain the gears.
Thank you, Mr. Stonewall. Thank you. I promise I'll not be any trouble. I'll stay out of the way. Thank you.
He turned and ran, this time toward home, not away from accusation. I stood in the mill yard alone, listening to the wheel turn. That evening, I sat in my office, frustrated. I'd wasted 3 days on the wrong suspect. I pulled out my notes, reviewed the boot prints, the other prints, adult-sized, worn heels, heavy tread. Who wore boots like that? Working borough folk. Someone who couldn't afford new ones. Someone who... Movement outside the office window. Rufus Timberland walked past, heading home from somewhere, hands in pockets, shoulders hunched. I saw his boots, worn heels, heavy tread, the kind that got resoled too many times instead of replaced. Everything clicked. I stared at those boots until Rufus disappeared down the path. Then I pulled out my ledger, started piecing together evidence systematically. The boots matched the prints perfectly. Worn heels, heavy tread, right size. I'd seen them in the flour dust a dozen times, dismissed them as normal traffic. The timing. Rufus came Tuesdays for Matilda's standing flour order, always on theft days. Started coming Friday evenings too, past month, just checking on next week's order, he'd said. The payments. 6 weeks overdue now. Matilda's seamstress work wasn't steady. Rufus's carpentry had dried up last winter. I'd noted the growing debt but thought nothing of it. Figured he'd pay eventually. Most did. The amounts, small, careful portions. £3 at a time. Not greed, caution. Enough to feed a family of 4 for a week. Not theft for profit. Theft for survival. Rufus lived with his sister Matilda and her 2 children, plus his own daughter Bess. 4 mouths on a seamstress's wages. His carpentry work had dried up after his wife died. Grief made his hands unsteady, made measuring twice feel impossible. Clients noticed. Work stopped coming. That was 2 years ago now, and he still couldn't pick up a saw without his vision blurring. Matilda's needle kept them fed, barely. But 3 children need more than thread can buy. 6 weeks overdue on the mill account meant 6 weeks of choosing between food and pride, between his daughter's hunger and his sister's shame if anyone learned what he'd done. The small amounts made sense now, taking only what his family needed, hoping no one would notice. I'd noticed. I sat there for a long time thinking. The grain loss wasn't crippling the mill. Father's margins could absorb it. Rufus was clearly desperate, not malicious. I could just let it go. Pretend I hadn't figured it out. The thefts would stop eventually when his situation improved.
Theft unpunished becomes habit. Sympathy is expensive. The mill runs on arithmetic, not sentiment.
And Father was always right about business. Besides, I needed to know for certain, needed confirmation. Evidence was strong, but circumstantial. What if I was wrong again? I decided to catch Rufus in the act. Thursday evening, I prepared the trap. Left the storage room door unlocked, accidentally. Made a show of leaving the mill at my usual time. Walked down the path toward the village, counting steps. At 200 paces, I circled back through our fields, approaching from the blind side where the grinding room blocked the view. Slipped inside through the grain delivery door. I'd stopped the wheel an hour ago. Engaged the brake. The building felt different without that constant motion. Quieter. Waiting. Like me. I settled into the grinding room shadows. Could see the storage room door from here, dark shape against lesser darkness. The mill creaked around me, wood settling as temperature dropped. Water rushed beneath, that sound never stopped. My acoustic bass line. the sound of my entire life. Full dark came. Stars emerged through the window glass. I stayed still, watching, waiting. Movement. The storage door opened, slowly, cautiously. A hand on the frame, testing. Then a shape against the lesser darkness outside. Rufus Timberland, moving like he was made of guilt and shadow, like he was haunting his own conscience. He had a sack, small, cloth, probably meant for vegetables. Moved to the grain barrel like he'd done this before, knew exactly where to go in the dark. How many times had he done this? He filled the sack carefully, measuring by touch and weight. Exactly 3 pounds, no more. Just what his family needed for a week's bread. I stepped out of the shadows.
Rufus Timberland.
He froze. The sack dropped from nerveless fingers. Grain spilled across the floor, wheat pooling at his feet like evidence he couldn't deny.
Mr. Stonewall.
Barely a whisper. His face had gone white as the flour he'd been stealing.
You know why I'm here.
He nodded, couldn't speak, just nodded. The silence stretched between us. The spilled grain whispered against the floorboards as it settled.
Come to the office. Let's settle this.
Rufus sat across the desk from me, hands trembling on his knees. I'd lit a single lamp, waste of oil, Father would say, but I needed to see his face clearly. The light made everything harsh. Rufus's cheeks were hollow, gaunt. His eyes had that hollow look of someone who hasn't slept properly in weeks.
How much total?
24 pounds. Maybe a bit more. I tried to keep track, but...
He couldn't finish. His voice broke on the unspoken truth. But I was too desperate to be careful.
Why not ask for credit? Matilda's account was good for years.
Pride. Stupid, stupid pride. We owed so much already. To the butcher, to Goodwife Rumble for the children's clothes, to Meg Fieldstone for vegetables. I thought I could make it up before anyone noticed. Matilda's been taking extra sewing work. We're close to being square. Just needed a few more weeks of...
He stopped, looked at me, saw what he'd just confessed to.
The children.
But I was only 4. She was getting sick, getting thin, and little Hal... I know it doesn't make it right, I know that. But they were so hungry, Mrs. Stonewall.
I believed him, could see it in his face, the specific terror of watching your child fade.
Matilda doesn't know.
She'd be mortified. She'd insist on confessing, on making it right, even if it meant the lockholes. She's proud. Good proud. Not stupid, like me.
I pulled out a sheet of paper, started calculating. 24 pounds of grain at market rate, 12 silver pennies. A month's wages for a working man. But I didn't need money. The mill needed work, always needed work. Hauling, sweeping, maintenance. Father had done himself because hiring help cut into margins. My margins now. A month of work at fair wages would cover the grain. Add interest for the theft, call it another month. 2 months total. Evening work wouldn't interfere with Matilda's seamstress business. Rufus shifted in his chair. His eyes caught on something above my head. The grain chute from the upper floor. Old habit, maybe. Can't help noticing things even when you're terrified.
Your grain chute's coming loose. Bolt to shearing. You'll want to fix that before it drops a load.
I looked up. He was right. I'd been meaning to check it for weeks. A thief, yes, but a competent one. Someone who noticed things. Someone who could actually do the work I needed done. The mathematics was simple. The solution obvious.
You'll work off the debt.
What?
2 months. 4 hours per week. Hauling, sweeping, maintenance. Evening work so it won't interfere with Matilda's business. And you'll fix that chute properly.
You're not telling Constable Thornell?
No.
Why?
Because turning you in doesn't get my grain back. Work does. And because your children, Belle, you said? She's 4? She doesn't need to watch the sheriffs take her father away.
The relief that broke across his face was painful to watch, like something inside him had been wound too tight and suddenly released.
Mr. Stonewall, Thank you. Thank you. I'll work hard, I promise you. Whatever you need, I'll...
Monday evening, 6 o'clock. Don't be late.
Monday, 6 o'clock. I'll be here. Thank you, Mr. Stonewall. Thank you.
He backed toward the door, couldn't seem to stop thanking me. I looked down at my ledger, uncomfortable with being seen as merciful. The door closed. His footsteps faded into the night. I sat in the office alone. The lamp burned low. Everything balanced except the feeling in my chest that I couldn't name and didn't want to examine. Mercy or pragmatism? I told myself it was pragmatism. Simple mathematics. The mill needed work. Rufus needed to feed his family. The solution served both needs efficiently. But sitting there in the lamplight, listening to the distant water, I wondered if mercy and pragmatism always looked the same from the outside, and whether anyone could tell the difference. Maybe not even me. I found Father the next morning in the grinding room, adjusting the stone gap again. Always adjusting, never satisfied.
I solved the grain theft.
Who was it?
Rufus Timberland. Stealing to feed his family.
Sheriffs involved?
No, he'll work it off. 2 months.
Father studied me with those flat eyes that never showed anything. The wheel groaned between us, patient and eternal.
Fair measure. No waste.
He turned back to his millstones. Subject closed. Not approval, not exactly, but close enough. I'd solved the problem Father's way, practical, efficient, no sentiment. The mill would get its labor, the debt would be paid. Constable Thornhill wouldn't need to be involved, which meant no official record, no scandal, no complications. Clean, precise, fair. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt the mechanical click of a problem solved, like gears finding their teeth. Everything in its proper place, no sentiment required. Rufus came Monday evening at 6, exactly on time. We worked in silence. I didn't know how to make conversation, and he seemed relieved not to try. I set him to hauling sacks from the storage room to the delivery area, reorganizing the inventory I'd been meaning to sort for weeks. He worked hard, moved like a man trying to earn back more than just grain, like he was paying off some debt to his own conscience. 32 sacks. He counted them aloud as he moved them, keeping precise tally. Miller's habit, maybe. Or just the need to prove he was doing the work properly. When the hour ended, he thanked me again. I nodded. He left. The pattern would repeat. Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings. 2 months. I returned to the office, updating the ledger with a single notation. Timberland debt. Work arrangement. Closed the book. Everything balanced now. Discrepancy resolved. That should have been enough. The following Tuesday, Bell appeared at the mill, hesitant, standing in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed.
Mr. Stonewall, you said I could watch, if you meant it.
I'd forgotten, or tried to forget, but I'd said it, and I kept my word.
Come on, then.
I showed him the basics, how the wheel's motion transferred through the shaft, how the gap between stones determined the grind, how the water flow controlled everything. Bell watched with complete attention, asked smart questions, absorbed everything.
The gears, they're like a conversation. One turns, makes the next one turn, all connected.
Not how I would have described it, but not wrong either.
That's remarkable. The way it all fits together.
That's what Father says. Everything in its proper place.
You must be proud, working here.
I didn't know how to explain that pride wasn't the word, that obligation fit better, that the mill was something I'd inherited like my eye colour or the shape of my hands, something that was mine, but that I'd never chosen.
It's work. Good work.
Bell nodded, thanked me, and left practically glowing. I stood there by the gears after Bell left. The mechanism turned, precise and purposeful. I'd explained how it worked, couldn't explain why that felt hollow. She came Monday morning. I was checking the wheel bearings when I heard footsteps on the path. Looked up to see Matilda Needlebury approaching the mill. She carried something folded in her hands. Walked with that careful composure of someone who'd been crying recently, but wouldn't let it show now. Seamstresses learn to control their faces. Customers don't want to see your troubles, just your work.
Mr. Stonewall, may I have a moment?
Mrs. Needleberry.
I set down my tools, wiped grease from my hands, wary. Didn't know what to expect. She held out the folded fabric.
I noticed this was torn.
My work shirt, the one I'd been wearing when I'd confronted Rufus in the mill. When had she...
When Rufus told me what he'd done, what you'd arranged. I wanted to... This needed mending.
I took the shirt, looked at it properly. The seam under the arm, I hadn't even known it was torn. The repair was invisible. Perfect work. You couldn't see where the damage had been unless you knew to look for it. Thank you. The words felt inadequate, smaller than what they needed to carry.
Thank you, Mr. Stonewall, for not making it worse.
My hands felt clumsy holding the shirt. I looked at it, looked at her, opened my mouth, closed it. Words wouldn't come.
He stole grain. He's working it off. Simple transaction.
You let Rufus keep his dignity. Let him pay his debt without shame. That's not simple, Mr. Stonewall.
Something uncomfortable settled in my chest, like someone had seen through my calculations to something underneath. Something I didn't want examined. She'd taken my torn clothing and made it whole again, invisible seams holding together what had come apart.
He steals grain. You fix my shirt?
It's what I can do. Rufus is a good man, Mr. Stonewall. Times are hard.
I nodded, still holding the shirt like I didn't know what to do with it.
I should get back. I have the Thornhill Commission due tomorrow. But I wanted you to know what you did for Rufus, for our family. It matters.
She walked down the path toward the village before I could respond. Probably better that way. I didn't have words for what I was feeling. I stood there for a long time after she'd gone, holding the mended shirt in my hands. Matilda had taken something broken and made it whole. Fixed it so perfectly you couldn't see the damage, like it had never been torn at all. I wished I knew how to do that with people. The shirt felt heavier than it should, like it was carrying more weight than just fabric and thread, like it meant something I wasn't ready to examine. I hung it carefully on the peg by the office door, looked at it hanging there, perfectly mended, invisible seams. Father had taught me to measure grain to the quarter ounce, to count every sack, to track every discrepancy.
Numbers don't lie. Mathematics is truth.
But standing there looking at that mended shirt, I wondered if there were truths mathematics couldn't measure. The mill wheel turned, the water flowed, everything in its proper place, except the feeling in my chest that felt like gratitude and guilt in equal measure, and I didn't know which one I was supposed to feel. Evening settled over the mill, that quiet hour between work and rest, when everything stilled except the water's constant voice. Rufus had finished his shift an hour ago, 3 weeks down, 5 to go. He'd worked hard, hauled 32 sacks from storage to delivery without complaint, swept the grinding room floor, started taking measurements for the grain chute repair. Competent work, fair value for the debt. That should have been enough. I hung Matilda's mended shirt on the peg by the door one more time. I'd been wearing it, but something made me want to look at it again. The seam was invisible unless you knew where to look, fixed like it was never broken. At my desk I opened the ledger, found the entry I'd made days ago, timberland debt, work arrangement. Below it I added a second notation, Riverstone boy, mill instruction, pending. 2 problems solved, 2 families helped, 2 choices I'd made without father, without Constable Thornhill, without anyone but myself. Belle Riverstone's face kept coming back, tear-streaked, terrified, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because I'd frightened him, because I'd seen guilt where there was only admiration. Had I shown mercy? Or had I just done the mathematics and found the most efficient solution? Matilda's words stayed with me, unfinished but complete. That's not simple, Mr. Stonewall. She was right. Nothing about this was simple. Rufus stole grain to feed his children. I'm making him work it off. That's justice, isn't it? Fair measure, equal exchange, the kind of transaction father would approve. But father would have turned Rufus over to Constable Thornhill without hesitation.
Theft unpunished becomes habit. Sympathy is expensive. The mill runs on arithmetic, not sentiment.
I'd made a different choice. The mathematics worked. The mill would get its labour, the debt would be paid, Rufus's family would stay together. Efficient, practical, everyone benefits. But late at night, sitting alone in my office, I wondered, would I have made the same choice if Rufus hadn't mentioned his daughter's name? Belle, 4 years old. The same name as the boy I'd frightened. Maybe mercy and pragmatism look the same from the outside. Maybe no one can tell the difference. Maybe I couldn't either. I closed the ledger, locked the mill, walked home through the settling dusk. Behind me, the wheel turned, the water flowed. The mill ground on, patient and indifferent to questions of kindness or efficiency, mercy or mathematics. The timberlands were eating tonight. Belle Riverstone was dreaming of gears and Lily Hayward. Father would have been satisfied with my work. The theft stopped, the debt being paid, no sheriff involvement, no scandal, the numbers balanced, everything in its proper place. For now, that would have to be enough. But in my pocket, I could still feel the weight of Matilda's mended shirt, invisible seams holding together what had come apart, fixed so perfectly you'd never know it had been broken. I wished I understood how she did that, because I had a feeling I was going to need to know. Thank you for listening to Mysteries of the Burrow. Please like and subscribe, and join us next time for the mystery of the broken lock.